Yo, welcome back to the MMA Fight Realm. It is your boy Chris, and I'm back with another picks and predictions video. This time for UFC Vegas 96, Caio Borralho taking on Jared Cannonier in the main event. Hope you guys like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you guys think of these picks in the comments, and let me know your picks in the comments as well, man. Leading off the card, we got Cong Wang taking on Victoria Leonardo. Now, Kong Wang, former kickboxer who's undefeated since making her transition to mixed martial arts. She's only 5-0, so not much experience, but she's gotten 3 finishes out of her 5 fights, 2 by way of submission, which is showing that she's showing the commitment. She's showing the commitment that she's made in this transition to MMA. She's got good takedown defense, and she's not intimidated when the fight goes to the ground. So these are good things to see coming from a former kickboxer with a win over Valentina Shevchenko, which is, definitely gotten her this ticket to the UFC for sure. And, in her fights that have gone to decision, she's shown good cardio and she's patient. She's not much of a knockout threat in my opinion, at least from what I've seen. And but she does make it clear against these opponents that she's got the better striking of the two. I think she's a good prospect, and she's going to get a good chance to showcase her skills here against Victoria Leonardo. Leonardo is 1-3 in the UFC, and her losses have been to great opponents, like Natalia Silva, Melissa Gatto, Manon Fiorot. But she's getting finished inside 2 rounds against all of these opponents. Leonardo, she's also been away for a year now, and I don't think it's gonna show. I don't know how she's gonna look, now considering she's 34 years old. I don't think it's gonna show much improvement. I think she's gonna look a lot like the same, and if she does, I could definitely see Kong Wang getting the better of these exchanges, winning minutes on the feet, and Leonardo, she might try to take this to the ground, where, as I said, Kong Wang is not going to be intimidated. So give me Kong Wang here to win in her debut, showcase her kickboxing skills, and get the job done either by knockout or by decision. Next up, we got Jacqueline Cavalcanti taking on Josiane Nunes. Nunes, we saw a few months back take a unanimous decision loss to Chelsea Chandler, and that is aging like milk at this point, considering how awful Chelsea Chandler is and how she looked in her last one. I did pick Chelsea Chandler to get the job done against Josiane Nunes. I thought her size was going to play a huge role, and it definitely did. That was the difference maker in that fight. You got to add that Chandler did miss weight, and she missed weight again in her last fight, so Chandler just not on a good roll there. Nunes, at this weight class though, I think she is going to struggle because she's easily one of the smaller bantamweights to fight for the UFC. She's definitely got power. She's got a lot of finishes. She's 3-1 in the UFC despite her being the smaller fighter, and she definitely packs a punch. She's even fought at featherweight, but she hasn't been anyone that really stands out. All right, I think Cavalcanti is going to have the advantage in terms of technical striking, and I can see Nunes trying to make this a dogfight, while Cavalcanti is just landing more volume and using her size to her advantage. These two, they both fought Sarah Farron, and Nunes, where she had a close fight with Farron, Cavalcanti, I thought she did a great job with her distance management, and she had a high output, which got her the unanimous decision win over Sarah Farron in that one. Again, Farron, not a very notable opponent. That's the only opponent that Cavalcanti has faced. So, there's going to be some question marks going into this fight for both fighters. Neither one have really beaten anyone notable. If I had to pick who has the higher ceiling out of the two, I think it's Cavalcanti, and that's a lot of what I'm going to be basing my pick off of here. I think Cavalcanti will be staying away from the power, overhooks of Josiane Nunes, and I think she gets this one done, landing at a higher rate and using her distance. So give me Jacqueline Cavalcanti to get this one done by decision. Next up, we got Reese taking on Jose Medina. The pick here is Reese, man. I don't think, I think Medina is going to be outsized at 185. He's going to be outmatched at this level of mixed martial arts. If you watch other predictors on YouTube, the common theme is Jose Medina is not UFC caliber, and rightfully so, man. I don't think the guy has beaten anyone good. Majority of his wins are over opponents with terrible records or barely any mixed martial arts experience themselves, and Medina is a brawler. He can take a punch, I will give him that, but unless he shows levels of improvement here in this fight, I don't see how he can get it done. I think Reese is getting a layup here. He's got a 4-inch height advantage and a 3-inch reach advantage. 7 wins, all by finish. The loss to Cody Brundage was definitely a fight IQ thing, where he just held on to the arm triangle while being slammed. But he had a great bounce back performance against Julian Marquez, where he knocked him out in the opening seconds of the fight. And Julian Marquez does have a questionable chin, so there is that to mention. Medina, definitely not as questionable of a chin. We saw him take a beating, a 3-round beating in his Contender Series fight, and he still got a contract. I just don't think the guy is UFC caliber. I do think he can take more damage than a guy like Marquez. So it's going to be interesting to see how Reese manages his cardio, considering, he's never been past the first round of a fight in his pro career. So, regardless of the cardio questions, the pick remains Reese here in this one. I think he gets it done, and I think he gets it done by finish. Next up, we got James Llontop taking on Viacheslav Borshchev. Llontop wasn't able to get it done in his debut against short notice replacement Chris Padilla, but he did get to showcase his striking in his debut. He won some moments on the feet, but it didn't take long before he got the takedown. Chris Padilla got the takedown, and he was able to expose Llontop's ground game. I don't see that happening in this one. I can see we got 2 strikers, Borshchev with more experience but a very questionable chin, and Llontop definitely still has a lot to show at this level of his career, but I do think he's a good striker. Very young, only 25 years old. He has time to fill out these holes in the grappling and the wrestling. 14 wins, so he's got a good amount of experience. 8 by finish. I think, you got to also credit that he's never been knocked out, so he's got the durability, man. He was pushing the pace in every round of his Contender Series fight until the final bell. I think he's got good cardio. What seems to be the theme is, the guys who get their hand raised against Viacheslav Borshchev are the guys who are taking him down. Mike Davis, he's got 9 takedowns. Mark the Casey, he got 11 takedowns. Hooper, the one guy who stands out, he did drop Viacheslav Borshchev early in the first, but I think it was the takedown threat of Chase Hooper that played a big role in him having the striking success. And then in the second, Hooper was able to take down a already battered Borshchev and finish him. I think the striking of Borshchev is amazing. I think he is relentless at working his way back to his feet when he's taken down. I'm not sure if Llontop will mix in the wrestling and grappling, and if he's looking to strike with Borshchev, there is a chance that he can drop him, but I think that would just make a much more difficult fight for Llontop than it really needs to be, because if you are looking to beat Borshchev, it's getting him to the ground, it's tiring him out. Borshchev, he's a very experienced kickboxer, and when he gets into rhythm, he can finish his opponents. I think Borshchev will have the better moments on the feet, but his chin is extremely questionable, man. He got dropped by Nazim, he got dropped by Chase Hooper, and those are in back-to-back fights. And the Hooper fight was just 3 months ago, so not too much recovery time. I think this should be at a pick'em price, considering, Viacheslav Borshchev is 2-1 favorite. I want to take a shot at the dog here, but I'm still picking the favorite Viacheslav Borshchev to get this one done by decision. I really won't be betting on Borshchev at this much of a favorite, considering his chin being unreliable, but I do think he is the rightful favorite in this fight because Llontop hasn't really shown us he can get fights to the ground successfully yet. So I'm going with Borshchev in this one to get this one done. Next up, we got Dennis Buzukja taking on Francis Marshall. You know, it was supposed to be Danny Silva, but we are getting a replacement here. One of what was going to be one of the better fights on the card. Now, Francis Marshall is the replacement, and this fight is going to be at 155. I question who that is going to benefit because I think Francis Marshall is the bigger fighter. Haven't seen much of the stats yet, but I did get to watch some tape on both of these two prior to making this prediction. The resurgence of Dennis Buzukja, you know, getting his first win in the UFC after coming off 2 tough losses against battle-tested opponents like Jamal Emmers and Sean Woodson. It was good to see. I like to see the resurgence. You know, he picked up a win over Connor Matthews. Now, Connor Matthews, a guy making his debut in the UFC, coming off Contender Series, and Connor Matthews did have a great Contender Series fight, but his debut compared to his Contender Series fight looked very different in my opinion. You know, Dennis Buzukja was able to meet him in all of the areas where Connor does well, and he stood out. You know, Dennis Buzukja landed powerful shots. He's got knockout power. He showed that in his last one, got the finish late in that fight. And Francis Marshall, he's definitely got knockout power as well. He got it done in his debut. And I just think Francis Marshall will be trying to push the grappling and wrestling in this one. And Buzukja training with guys like Marab, Aljo, up in Long Island, training with guys like Nazim. I think that he's going to be ready for that grappling and wrestling pressure of Francis Marshall. I think he's got the better striking of the two, and he's definitely a lot more prepared. So I'm going to side with Dennis Buzukja here. Not too strong of a lean because, you know, Francis Marshall is definitely capable, and I think, you know, I don't have the stats in front of me, but I do think he is the bigger fighter. So this fight being at 155, I don't really know who that's going to favor out of the two. I think it's Francis Marshall as of right now, but the pick is going to be Dennis Buzukja, much more prepared. And you know, Danny Silva, his former opponent, also has a huge wrestling threat himself. So I think Danny Silva mixes it up a lot more than Francis Marshall. So Dennis was definitely already preparing for a crafty fighter. I think Dennis gets this one done. Next up, we got Edmen Shahbazyan taking on Gerald Meerschaert. Each fighter coming into this one with some momentum, picking up a win in their last fight. Edmen was able to find the early finish yet again, and Gerald Meerschaert was able to find the late submission yet again. So, you know, it seems to be the theme with both of these guys. They aren't going to fight much different from one opponent to the next. Edmen hasn't won a fight that's gone past the second round, and Gerald hasn't won a fight in the early rounds since 2021. So, you know, you also have to add that Gerald is now 36 and has taken a lot of damage in his career, while Edmen still only 26 and has plenty of time to, you know, straighten out the cardio issues that have seemed to carry on even up until now. So, you know, it's a tough fight. It's a close fight. I'm gonna have to side with danger in this one, and I'm going to pick Edmen Shahbazyan to get the finish on the feet. I think you know, Gerald has been known for taking a beating, but now at some point, especially against a powerful striker like Edmen, I think that game plan is not going to be successful. I think Edmen will land early and often, and I think he gets this one done by finish, man. Next up, we got Neil Magny taking on Michael Morales. Morales is back and looking to keep climbing the rankings with a win over Neil Magny here. And Neil Magny
looking to prove even at 37, almost 38, he's still got the tools to get the job done against the new generation. And Morales definitely in that class of the new generation, and I think this is going to be a good test for him. He's got all the tools. I think he's got all the tools to get this one done and win every single round, in my opinion. He's got strong calf kicks, which Magny has not really been defending well lately. Magny gave up 22 leg kicks against Mike Malott and in his last fight, and Magny was able to deal with it, you know, well enough to get a win. But I think it was the cardio of Malott that played a huge role there. Malott was up 2 rounds on all judges' scorecards going into the 3rd round, and he was on his way to securing a decision win. It would have been Magny's 2nd loss in a row. Magny has also given up 8 takedowns in his last 5 fights. He's got a good get-up game, but that's really just telling me that the age is starting to catch up to Magny. And for Morales, you know, this won't be the first time he's been matched up with a veteran. He's passed the test against Max Griffin, Trevin Giles, and Jake Matthews in his last one. He's outstriking his opponents by 30 plus in the striking stats. He's got a high output, and there's just no quit in Michael Morales. He will find whatever way to win. We saw his wrestling on Contender Series. He got 4 takedowns, and since then he's gotten wins with his striking, which is really just showing how well-rounded this guy is. Only 25 years old, and I think he's going to pass this test against Neil Magny. It's one of those, you know, right place, right time fights for Michael Morales. If this were a few years back, I you know, probably would be hesitant to be picking him here. But they did not fast track Morales. They have given him the right test against true veterans, and this is going to be another one against another veteran that I think he's going to get his hand raised against. Magny, he's slowing down. He's never really been a power puncher, and I don't think he's going to be able to keep Morales on the outside of his height and reach. So I say Morales gets this one done by TKO or by decision. Next up, we got Ryan Loder taking on Robert Valentin. Ultimate Fighter middleweight finale. Ryan Loder 6-1 with 4 finishes. Former D1 wrestler, and he's had a lot of success using that wrestling experience in his mixed martial arts career. You know, he's picked up both of his wins in the Ultimate Fighter by being relentless with the takedowns, but also showing improvement in the striking. And, you know, I will say the striking is definitely to get to his wrestling, but I think it's working out for the guy. You know, he's having a lot of success. Like I said, he lacks head movement though. He lacks head movement, and that could cost him against a guy like Robert Valentin. But I could say the same for Robert Valentin as well. Robert is very unorthodox, but he's very wild. I can compare him to Jiri Prochazka in terms of just being orthodox, but also being very hittable. You know, on the regional scene, he's been taken down time and time again, and that was something I was looking out for in this matchup here against a D1 wrestler. And you know, he does make up for that bad takedown defense with his grappling. He's got some crafty submissions. We saw that in the Ultimate Fighter semifinals fight, where he got a leg lock Kimura, which was, I thought, pretty crafty finish there. He's always looking for the finish, no matter where the fight goes. Robert will not mind, you know, staying in the pocket to land some shots, and you know, it has costed him in the past. A guy like Ivo Aslan, UFC light heavyweight right now, he was able to knock out Robert Valentin back in the regional scene. I think Robert is the one with more finishing potential in this fight, but I think Loder can definitely I can definitely see the path to victory for a guy like Ryan Loder in this fight. Ryan Loder does not mind laying and praying. I've seen some tape of him on the regional scene as well. He will rack up that control time. Either Robert is able to defend the takedowns and land the more meaningful shots on the feet, or Loder is able to get his wrestling going and rack up that control time. I think the experience for Valentin is, and the finishing threat is always there. I think that's where he's going to get his hand raised in this fight. I think Valentin, he will be able to fend off the takedowns with his grappling threat and get the job done here by finish. This is definitely a pick'em fight, but I have to side with danger in this one. I think Valentin, the more finishing potential, doesn't matter where the fight goes, he will be threatening for submissions, he will be threatening for the knockout, maybe even a knee up the middle, while Loder is shooting for a takedown. And Loder, you know, like I said, only 6-1, very inexperienced, and already 33. So, you know, if I had to pick who also has the higher ceiling here, I think it's Robert Valentin. But man, we got a definitely close fight, and it's gonna tell us a lot about each one of these two. I'm gonna side with danger in this one, and I'm going with Robert Valentin to get this one done. Next up, we got the co-main event, Angela Hill taking on Tabatha Ricci. Angela Hill has been on a great run lately. She's shown a lot of improvement in her ground game and takedown defense. Hill, she has defended 6 out of 7 takedowns in her last one against Luana Pinheiro, 2 out of 3 against Lupi Godinez, and 2 out of 3 against Denise Gomes. And she's clearly putting in work on her weaknesses, because, you know, that was definitely what costed her in the past. Even at 39 years old, she's still a threat against anyone in this weight class. She's always been a high volume striker, and now with a renewed grappling game, I think she's definitely got a chance to upset the rising star here, Tabatha Ricci. Ricci has just barely been getting by lately. You know, she had a split decision win in her last one against Tisha Pennington, where you can easily make the case for Pennington winning that fight. You know, Ricci, she got outstruck 80-54 on the significant strikes, and she only got 1 takedown out of 10 attempts in that fight. So split decision win for her, but definitely very questionable. And then after that, a split decision loss to Lupi Godinez, where again Ricci wasn't able to get the takedowns. She went 0 for 6 on takedowns against Lupi Godinez. So it's clear, you know, if Ricci isn't getting the takedowns, she's either not going to win or she's going to be in a nail biter of a fight. You know, Ricci doesn't have the striking to separate herself from her opponents, and Angela Hill is definitely the better striker of the two. But in terms of athleticism, I think Ricci has potential to outmuscle Hill, but it's been a lot harder to get Hill to the ground than it was in the past, which is, you know, crazy. She's only getting older. I'm gonna pick Angela Hill here, but I don't know if I'll get to a bet on this fight. You know, I think Hill has shown improvement in the takedown defense, and she's got the reach advantage in this one, so she should be able to keep Ricci at distance while it's on the feet. If Ricci is having success getting this fight to the ground, then she will definitely be able to control Hill on the ground. I think she's got a good amount of BJJ experience, and with the athleticism and the youth of Ricci, I cannot count her out of this fight. So, you know, no bet for me, but just for the pick, I will be taking Angela Hill by decision. I think she's riding the more momentum coming into this one, and she's got a lot more to lose out of the two. So I'm going to be picking Angela Hill to get this one done by decision. Next up, we got the main event. Hope you guys like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you guys think of these picks, man. Gerald Cannonier taking on Caio Borralho. Very fun main event fight that was just announced only about 2 or 3 weeks ago. So I'm really not too sure how much time these guys have had to prepare for 5 rounds, but I think this fight is going to deliver. You know, Gerald making a quick return coming off that loss to Nasruddin Imavov, and you know, you can argue that it was an early stoppage, but you can't argue that Gerald Cannonier got caught in that fight. And you know, that's definitely something that we haven't seen in a while for Gerald Cannonier. We haven't seen him get clipped that bad in a while, and I think it's because the age is starting to catch up to him. You know, he's definitely a well-rounded striker, well-rounded grappler. He's got good takedown defense, and he's got knockout power. He's always going to be a knockout threat. I think that's one of the last things to go in a fighter, but at 40 years old, I just don't think he's as equipped to take damage anymore in these fights, especially at this level of MMA. And Caio Borralho is a guy who is always improving out there. He, chose not to take the fight to the ground against Paul Craig and showcase his striking. He earns himself a knockout finish in that fight. And, for a guy who coming into the UFC showcased a lot of grappling, got majority of his fights to the ground, he was able to rack up a bunch of takedowns and win these fights by decision. Now he's showcasing that he's got hands, he's got good striking, he's training with the guys up in the Fighting Nerds who have been savages lately. The potential is definitely on the Caio side, and for Cannonier, he's definitely looking to upset, and he's in a similar position to Neil Magny, where he's trying to show that he still can beat these guys who are a part of the new generation, the new wave of fighters. I think Cannonier is going to be a step behind in this fight, unfortunately, man. I do think he's got the better striking. He might even have a power advantage here, but it's hard to tell considering how fast Caio is improving from fight to fight. I think this guy is, definitely showing commitment to the game. He's improving every single time that he's out there, and I think he's gonna get this one done, man. It's another one where I feel very similar to the Morales and Magny matchup. Right place, right time. If you match these two up a few years back, and if you tried to fast track Caio to this matchup, I probably would be hesitant to pick him here, because Cannonier, if the Jared Cannonier that showed up against Marvin Vettori shows up in this fight, I think he wins. But it's just so hard to tell. I do think that the age is starting to play a role. The injury that led to a long layoff also is starting to play a role, and he didn't really have much time to loosen up and get comfortable in that cage against Nasruddin Imavov, so he's still carrying that layoff towards this fight as well, and I think it's going to play a role, man. Right place, right time for Caio Borralho to get this one done, and I think he does get his hand raised against Jared Cannonier in the main event by decision. I think it's going to be a scrap, and he's going to have moments. Jared Cannonier is going to have moments of his own, but I think Caio at the end gets his hand raised. And there you guys have it, man. Those are my picks and predictions. Hope you guys like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you guys think of these picks. Had to run through them quickly. A bit tight of a schedule here, so quick breakdown for you guys. I'm out of here. Peace, man.